growing tensions with North Korea. This morning, South Korean officials are reporting the North has fired another projectile, their second launch in just 5 days. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, has the latest on all this. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Robin. Coming on the heels of Saturday's volley of short-range missile or rocket launches, this launch is even more provocative. At least 2 projectiles came from a missile base known for operating short and medium-range ballistic missiles. North Korea called Saturday's launch a regular and defensive military exercise, but Kim Jong-un is clearly sending a message as the U.S. tries to get the North back to the nuclear negotiating table after the second summit ended with no progress, Robin.
And Martha, we also know that this comes while tension growing with Iran over nuclear weapons.
Exactly. The Trump administration is placing new sanctions on Iran, targeting its iron, steel, and copper, which make up 10% of Iran's export revenue. Iran now warning it will resume enriching high-grade uranium used in nuclear reactors in 60 days' time if there is no sanctions relief. And of course, this all comes as the U.S. is sending B-52 bombers and a carrier strike group to the region in response to what officials tell ABC News was intelligence showing Iran was possibly transporting missiles on small Iranian boats in the Persian Gulf that could possibly be used to attack U.S. forces in the region.
And this was the reaction from Israel.
We will not allow Iran to achieve nuclear weaponry. We will continue to fight those who would kill us.
Representative Brian Sims here, and I am outside the Planned Parenthood at southeastern Pennsylvania. Oh, no, they're leaving now. What we've got here is a bunch of protesters, a bunch of pseudo-Christian protesters who've been out here shaming young girls for being here. And so here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these 3.
So we're
that I'm going to donate
to
Planned Parenthood. I'm going to donate to Planned Parenthood. So look, a bunch of white people standing out in front of a Planned Parenthood, shaming people.
Really
There's nothing Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all about what you're doing. Hi, nothing Christian or loving or godly about what you're doing. So I've got $100 to anybody who will identify this. $100. See if you got some friends out here. $100. It'd be easier if you just give me your name and your address.
Ashley Gracht is the mother you just saw in that video, and she joins us tonight from Philadelphia. Ashley, thanks very much for coming on. You were there in the video with 3 girls. I think 2 of them are yours. How old are they?
So my daughters are 15 and 13, and my daughter's friend who is with us is also 15.
15 and 13. What did they think of this?
It was a shocking experience. What is not seen in that video was our first interaction with Mr. Sims. He approached us about 20 minutes before that. Came in, I would say, he came in hot. He came in yelling at us, and really was yelling very directly at the girls, very specifically at the girls. So I moved myself in between him and the girls, asked him, please talk to me. Let's have a conversation, the 2 of us as 2 adults. But he continued to yell at the girls, and then eventually.
This morning, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected to sign one of the most restrictive and controversial anti-abortion laws in the country. The bill makes abortions illegal once a heartbeat is detected in the embryo. That can happen as early as 5 or 6 weeks after conception. Mark Strassman is in Atlanta with why the law could face a long legal challenge. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. This bill, also known as the Life Act, is yet another state's challenge to the legal milestone of Roe v. Wade, 1973 decision that made abortion legal in this country. And once the governor here signs this bill, lawsuits from opponents are guaranteed.
We as a state can recognize the life interest of these helpless children.
State Representative Ed Setzler is the main sponsor of the bill. That's thrusting Georgia into the middle of America's controversy over abortion rights.
I mean, the most defenseless person in our entire culture is the child in utero.
The fetal heartbeat law would take effect next year and still allow abortions if the baby's life or the mother's was in danger, or in cases of rape or incest.
But our current governor, who claimed to want to move Georgia forward, is pushing this cruel, punitive, and regressive bill.
Abortion rights advocates like State Senator Jen Jordan say many women don't even know they're pregnant by 6 weeks.
Clear intent of this is to make sure that women have absolutely no access to being able to get an abortion.
Georgia will be the 6th state to enact legislation banning abortions after 6 weeks. Iowa and North Dakota laws were struck down at the state and federal levels. Similar bills enacted this year in Kentucky, Ohio, and Mississippi are all facing legal fights.
I'm very frightened of the implications.
Makeup artist Jennifer Bennett works in Georgia's massive TV and movie industry. The Walking Dead, Black Panther, and the Hunger Games series were all filmed here. But more than 100 Hollywood stars promised to boycott the state if the bill becomes law.
Women who rely on this to pay their mortgages, to support their families, to put food on the table, what am I supposed to do?
Georgia's governor says he expects lawsuits and is ready to fight for this bill. All of this has become a multi-state legal challenge and seems headed for the U.S. Supreme Court.
Another major storm today is threatening to bring more rain and flooding to the already soaked southeast. At least 6 states from the south up into the plains face some risk of flooding. Parts of Texas have been hit hard. In Austin, 1 man died after falling into fast-moving floodwaters. Officials in Houston tell us they are gearing up for the next round of severe weather. Maria Villarreal is in Kingwood, Texas, northeast of Houston. Maria, good morning.
Well, good morning. Right here, this is about as close as we can get to a sinkhole that opened up right behind me when a lot of that rain hit the Houston area. You can see there is nothing left there. A lot of it was swept away by those floodwaters. You know, right now, a lot of that water in Kingwood has receded after nearly 10 inches fell in this area. But as residents are just starting to clean up, they are worried more water is on the way.
It was just water everywhere.
Across the Houston area, communities are recovering from 3 days of rain and flooding. In Kingwood, soaked furniture and soggy debris blanket front yards. After flood-weary residents spent the day clearing out their waterlogged homes. Hundreds of homes were impacted, and even as residents begin to dry out, it's likely severe storms will strike again later today. The downpour sent a creek over its banks and onto this interstate in Kansas, shutting down nearly 40 miles of highway. It also inundated streets in this neighborhood.
The water was so deep that it's coming into my basement.
Last night, violent winds ripped through this apartment complex in Arkansas. 4 people were injured. Flash flooding also slammed that state, turning overpasses into waterfalls. Good Samaritans pushed 1 woman off the road after water stalled her car. There are predictions that some parts of Texas could reach up to an additional 6 inches of rain over the next few days. And for people living here in Kingwood, they are very worried because, as I said, this week, this rain was more than they expected and had experienced even during Hurricane Harvey.
An alarming new report highlights the problem of opioid addiction among healthcare professionals. The report out today shows more than 44 million doses of legally prescribed opioids were stolen last year. Now, that is an increase of 126% from 2017. Doctors and nurses were to blame most of the time. Errol Barnett spoke to a patient and a doctor about the impact of so-called drug diversion. Errol, good morning.
Good morning. Look, this report is by a data firm and based solely on public information like news, reports, and police records. So what we're about to show you is likely just a tip of the iceberg. The report found nationwide patients are at an increased risk of being seen by a doctor or nurse misusing opioids.
I'm not scared anymore.
For 3 years while practicing in Tennessee, Dr. Stephen Lloyd was among healthcare workers addicted to opioids and treating patients at the same time.
Addiction has the same prevalence no matter what profession you are. Doctors, lawyers, judges, politicians.
It also consumed his personal life. In this image, while coach of his son's Little League team, Dr. Lloyd was high on opioids.
Had a lot of education. The weird thing is there's almost no education on addiction.
His dependence began after an attempt to self-medicate for anxiety and depression.
What I didn't realize was how quickly it would escalate, going from that half of a 5 milligram of Lortab to within 3 years about 500 milligrams of OxyContin a day.
That's about how many pills a day?
It's about 100 Vicodin.
Lloyd's long hours, high stress, and easy access led to plots to take his patients drugs.
There was no requirements on what happened to those pills. They could go down the toilet or they could go in my pocket.
Lloyd has been clean for 15 years and now works to help other healthcare workers battling addiction. Lauren Lillini's life was put at risk by her healthcare technician who was addicted to painkillers.
I was jaundiced. I was very, very fatigued.
When Lillini went to the hospital for kidney surgery in 2009, she was shocked when left with hepatitis C and a liver infection. Technician Kristen Parker infected Lillini and at least 18 others by stealing their pain medication and leaving contaminated syringes for reuse. She's now serving 30 years in prison.
A system is broken, and someone who might be addicted to some painkillers is like a kid in the candy store.
Now get this, Lillini discovered during the trial that Parker, the technician, was previously reported for diverting drugs at another hospital, but that information is protected by healthcare privacy laws, so patients would have no clue. The Justice Department has a new opioid addiction detection unit, but that was only launched in less than a third of the country.
Now we have a landmark decision in Denver. Voters electing to make the city the first in the nation to effectively decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms. Whit Johnson is here with those details. Good morning, Whit.
Robin, good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. We should say right off the bat that this does not mean people in Denver will be able to walk into a store and buy so-called magic mushrooms. Buying, selling, or possessing psychedelic mushrooms is still technically illegal, but the initiative makes enforcing the law the lowest priority for police, effectively decriminalizing them. Now, supporters point to emerging research touting the medical benefits of mushrooms, saying they can be effective in treating depression and other mental health issues. Last year, the FDA seemed to agree, giving it a special designation to speed up the testing process. Critics, though, say not enough research has been done on the long-term effects. The vote, though, extremely close. The margin was fewer than just 2,000 votes.
Denver proving to be at the forefront when it comes to situations like this.
Absolutely. We've seen them ahead of this movement. Back in 2005, decriminalizing the use of marijuana. Then in 2012, the state of Colorado legalizing marijuana for recreational use. But opponents of this new initiative fear that Denver could become sort of a testing ground for legal drugs. So a lot of strong opinions on both sides.
Right.
Some might say that is true. And there are other states as well, Oregon and California, considering doing something similar in the future. So not just Colorado.
One day, Jesus is coming. You may be at church. You may be at work. You may be asleep. God grant that you will be ready when he makes his personal appearance. My God, what if his appearance occurs on a Sunday morning? My prophetic word to you this morning is get